City of Gun Barrel City will meet in a special meeting in City Hall Council Chambers located at 1716 West Main Street, Gun Barrel City, Texas, on Tuesday, March 17th, 2026 at 4:30 p.m. I call this meeting to order. I have a roll call from my right.
Edwards?
Jacob's here.
Burns here. We have a quorum. Janet, do we have any citizens' comments? We don't. Moving on to new business. 4A, discussion regarding the final draft of ordinance chapters 31 through 35. Our sponsor is Dr. Smith.
Council, as you know, we spent almost a full year, twice a month with the Ordinance Review Committee. We're knocking these off in special meetings, discussing small chunks at a time. We won't do a full page turn. What I'm happy to do is attempt to answer questions. Some I may have to go back and get a better answer, look at some minutes of some meetings. The notes you see is not only a combination of staff's notes, but also of the Ordinance Review Committee. So in some places, we answered questions related to something completely different all at one time. But we can discuss this from the dais. We can move to the tables. All of the items tonight are discussion only. We will not take any formal action. But this is chapters 31 through 30. I think it's actually 31 through 35. I included 36, but it is chapter 31 is city council. Chapter 32, let me pull this up real quick. Chapter 32 is municipal court. Chapter 33 is personnel policies. Chapter 34 is departments, boards, and commissions. You might remember that is when they added the Parks Advisory Board, they added all of them into that section. We removed that entire section and moved it to Parks and Recreation because that's where planning and zoning is and that's where BOA is. They're in line with the chapters that they oversee. The police department and the fire department. There are some pretty massive changes. Not really city council, or there are a few in municipal court because the state legislature added the local youth diversion fund and the requirement of associate judges to put in place a youth diversion program. The biggest changes that you see come in the police department and the fire department. Chief Stevens is here to answer any questions you may have, but really the goal was we have started the accreditation process and we need our ordinances to be in line with the requirements of the accreditation. So those really are best practice that get put in place, and a lot of cities have to do this as they start the accreditation process. We also changed, I think, auxiliary reserve to just reserve. And then fire department saw a lot of changes. Chief Lindeman and I walked through this a lot because those ordinances were based on a volunteer fire department, which we don't really have anymore. So we do still have volunteers, but we have a chief slash fire marshal. We have captains. We have full-time captains, 3 full-time captains, 3 full-time firemen. I'm getting the nod from the fire chief. And so everywhere referred to it as the volunteer fire department. So I'm happy to answer any questions you all have. Janet is also here and can help me. She's sat in these meetings as well. There are a couple members. Mr. Bond was on the Ordinance Review Committee, so if we need to ask questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Just the next section. Once we review 31 through 35, I will then package 10 through 35 and send those to the city attorney to start working on, and they will come back at a later meeting for you to approve. So just if you have any questions specifically on those or comments you want us to look at, I can't make any promises, but we can definitely take a look at whatever we need to look at.
Do y'all want to stay at the dais or do y'all want to move to the tables?
No, I read it. I'm good.
You're okay? Okay.
I'm good with the changes.
Yeah, but I just didn't know if you wanted to stay here at the dais or do you want to move to the tables to have discussions?
Yeah,
Easier for you to hear if we're down.
I'm good here.
Okay.
All right, so I have, of course, a couple of, I don't know if we want to address them here. I talked to Angie about a few of them that I want changed. Do I need to go over those?
Yeah, we can, absolutely.
So section 31.17, the agenda executive sessions, under B2, invocation, I guess they're making a recommendation to add the moment of silence. I do not wish to add that. I would like to leave it as an invocation only. Do we need to discuss it or just tell?
Yeah, no, we can absolutely, I would like to kind of have a general consensus from council. Do we leave it as recommended from the ordinance review committee, or do I send it to the attorney with a council recommendation, right? That's the only difference, is a recommendation from the ordinance review committee and then a council recommendation that I send forth to the attorney.
I mean, I'm certainly okay with it saying invocation / moment of silence, because, I mean, you know, who knows what future mayor 15 years from now.
Well, they can change it then, but if we do it this way, my understanding is that gives gives the mayor the right to choose, not having both. They choose what they want. I'm choosing invocation. I want an invocation. That's just my choice. It's my preference. I'm going to fight for what I want. I understand some people want a moment of silence, and they can take a moment of silence if they so choose, but I don't want the point where they don't do an invocation, and they would have that choice. Any other discussion? That doesn't give her much direction,
I'm
Do
good.
you have any thoughts?
No.
so I don't know which way you want to go with that. All right, so the next one is under the section C, same 31.17 C, where it says city manager or designee. On this particular paragraph, I do not want it to say or designee.
Wait, tell me again where you're at.
On section 31.17, section C, where it says general business and action item requests, it's agenda items may be submitted by the mayor, any city council member, or the city manager or designee, but I don't want a designee. I'm not sure what, for this particular thing, I think it needs to go through the council, the mayor, or the city manager, not a designee, to get something on the agenda.
Yeah, what does designee mean?
So, Councilmember Burns and I talked about this today. So there were a lot of places where it defaulted to the street superintendent, or it defaulted to specifically the city manager had to do a thing, right? Whatever that thing was. We did a wholesale change of city manager or designee. Now that we're going back through it for the 12th time, there are places that or designee probably is not appropriate. This is one. There is also some places in the police department ordinances specifically where it says that the police chief is hired by the city manager or designee. Probably not appropriate. The designee would be, I end up on long-term, I'm out for a long period of time, and I have to designate someone to do that task. But some things probably should be reserved for your city manager since they report directly to you. But there are also places in this that you'll see that we updated it, and we did that because titles change, right? What was a building inspector 20 years ago is no longer a building inspector, but we have given them tasks throughout these ordinances, and that title doesn't hold anymore. So in almost every case, we changed it to the city manager or the designee. And so we did a wholesale change. So there are several places that I will ask the city attorney to pay attention. Is or designee appropriate? This is one of them. There is also several more cases under police department and potentially even under fire that we need to look at again to make sure that it truly should be or designee, and it shouldn't be limited to the duties of the city manager.
Okay.
And then we discussed under ordinances and resolutions 31.32, introduction and action on ordinances. I think we're going to change that. Did you want to reread that?
I can. So if you notice on the red line copy, we had made some amendments. I don't have my red line
Okay,
here.
all you
because
did was you took out where it says an ordinance and resolution shall be in writing and shall be introduced, and we took out by some member of the city council. So it just read that they shall be in writing and shall be introduced at open meetings of the city council, but it never tells
Yes.
about who presents that.
Yeah. And so Councilwoman Burns had a great point of what does that mean, right? Does that mean anybody can show up during public comment and introduce a ordinance and council needs to act on it? So she and I talked about it earlier, and maybe change that first sentence to all ordinances and resolutions shall be placed on a city council agenda, introduced, read, and acted upon at an open meeting. So pretty simple language replacing what we discussed that change. Minor change, but we can move forward with that language at y'all's recommendation.
And then on 31.33, I think you, or the ordinance review said, is there a better word than touch?
Yeah.
So it just says, we're talking about all ordinances and resolutions upon passage shall be approved by the mayor, numbered and attested by the city secretary, and shall be recorded by the city secretary in a book of ordinance or in the minutes of resolutions. This sentence here is where it says, such book of ordinances shall by authority touch all questions arising under the laws and ordinance of the city. So I guess, is there a better word? I mean, could be, like,
Yeah.
that's what I had down here, address or apply.
Yeah. And that message was really to the attorney, is there a better word than that? Because that word, sometimes you used old language, right? I can't, when was this one last passed? And so.
Use address,
that's-
I thought that
Yeah,
would be a good
yeah,
word
address
too.
would be appropriate, so.
I think that. Accepted that.
And I just want to, I've read over the, which section is this? 31.18, conduct of meetings, veto power of mayor, before we move on too far. I've read through this a couple of times, the section, the crossed out section and what we're changing it to. My understanding is that this doesn't change the process, it just rephrases, gives clarity to.
Does. So there was a question from the Ordinance Review Committee, is how did that just get lumped under conduct of meetings, right? And should it have its own section because it talks about the veto power of the mayor, right? That the mayor does not get a vote, but what the mayor does get is the ability to, what is the right word? Veto is the right word. Veto an ordinance, right? But all that does is bring it back to council, and there has to be a majority plus one vote to overturn it.
Right, okay.
So if that doesn't happen, then that moves forward, so.
I don't think we didn't change anything.
We
other
didn't
than-
really
other than
change
move it
anything.
Out of the
I
conduct of
made it
meetings.
easier to read, and I moved it down to another section, yeah.
Gotcha.
But it still outlines that it has to be filed within 3 days. It's an ordinance or a resolution. They have to file a statement of objection, and it is temporarily held. Says if the mayor files a statement of objection, the ordinance or resolution in a timely manner, it is killed unless a majority plus one of council votes to override. So then the majority plus one of council has to override that, so. It just became its own section. Same words, easier to read, broken out a little bit, and its own section.
Yeah, I read through it a couple of times and I couldn't see.
No. And we did reference charter because that also is discussed in the charter, so you'll see there that we added charter reference section 305, so.
Okay.
So I have no other discussion on that other than, I'll of course go back and read the ones that say city manager and designee, just making sure.
Yeah, absolutely,
that those
please.
don't apply where they shouldn't
And
possibly.
Janet and I will also watch that going forward. One thing that Councilwoman Burns did ask is about the local youth diversion fund and the local youth diversion administrative fee. I believe that is the designated same name from the legislature, but I am going to ask Judge Wallace to confirm that is a new mandate from the legislature. And it's a great program. Grace and I have spent a lot of time. She has a plan. Julie Kelly is our diversion coordinator. If we have, Keith might be able to talk a little bit more about this, but if a minor gets picked up for being at a party, public intoxication, something, right? So what we can do with these youth is find them things to do. They take a class. We're working on Brooke and Mike Howell and Casey in Parks and Judge Wallace and Julie Kelly are working on a volunteer program where they could dedicate some volunteer hours to the city so that they don't end up with this on their record right off the bat. But it is managed 100% through the court, and it is a mandated program. We had to have policies in place, and every municipality has had to do it. And so we're also working with the county on their plan and what they're doing, even though it's mandated at the local level. So I think that's why it's called local level, but I will ask Grace Wallace for sure, Judge Wallace for sure, just to confirm that that local is supposed to be there.
Any further discussions on the ordinances 31 through 35?
Nope.
Nope, seeing none, we'll move on to 4B. Discussion regarding the Community Center Policy and Procedures Manual, Section 3, as it relates to membership for Gun Barrel City businesses, and Section 5, as it relates to the gymnasium rentals. Again, our sponsor is our city manager, Dr. Smith.
So we discussed this briefly at our last meeting, and we asked to bring it back to have a bigger discussion on it. So there were two specific items that are on this agenda that we talked about. One was membership for city businesses, and I believe that discussion centered around owners of businesses being able to get a membership. I think it really goes back to really the only unresolved issue was how many people, right? Is it all owners? How we could figure out potentially how to determine that. Is it property owners? What if I own the business but I don't own the property? I just need direction from council on how you would like us to do that. Your city manager's recommendation after doing this for a while would be owners of the business, regardless of who owns the property, right? Because if they own the property, they could also live here, but owners of the business, and maybe limit it up to 2 or 3 as direction from council, and we will have a certificate of occupancy, or they will have a business registration license, their sales tax will have somebody's name on it. That person plus maybe up to 2 other people could get memberships.
You're talking about 2 other owners?
2 other owners, right.
So Jennifer, I know that this was one of the things that you had had contacts from from business owners that were interested in doing this, correct? So I think, were those business owners or property owners? Do you remember?
One of them is a property owner. It's a church.
But then they own they own the business too.
Yes,
So
they
we're
own
saying is if we chose to do the business owner, for example, which would incorporate, of course, the property owner if they're both, or it gets but if somebody owns the property but rents it out, if we choose the occupancy, then the business that's in there would be it and not the owner of the property.
That's my thoughts. I mean, they're spending money in Gun Barrel to lease that space. I mean, I feel like even though they don't necessarily own the building or the property, they should have access.
Bobby, any thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of the business owner. I mean, the property owner could live anywhere and buy property and just rent it out. As where the business owner is most likely going to be here or very close. So they can contribute more than, say, somebody that's just buying up land somewhere and then turning around and renting it.
Agreed.
I did confirm with Lauren, we could do it by CO because the business owner's name is on the CO. So I wanted to be sure who got the CO. Was it the property owner or the business owner? It is the business owner. So it's probably only going to have one owner's name. So that's the question is how many owners you just want the owner, you want the owner and the family? Do you want multiple owners and
I
multiple?
think it should definitely be the owner and their family, their immediate family who lives at home, I guess, you know what I'm trying to say, their,
Yep.
family there.
Yeah.
And then, but if there are multiple owners, I mean, do we need to limit that to so many owners? I can't fathom. I know, a lot of them have partners or have 2 or 3. I mean, do we want to, what number would y'all be interested in?
I'd be okay with offering it to up to 3.
3.
Everybody?
Work for you, Bobby?
So this won't come back to you at the March meeting because we have to post the agenda for the March meeting tomorrow, but it will come, Brooke and I can work on it on the back half, getting everything in, and then it will come back to you at the May meeting, April meeting, simply because we have to post the agenda for the March meeting tomorrow, and if I look down at Janet and tell her she has to add something, she might start spinning like a tornado, so we'll get that added. So then the second thing that we talked a little bit about, and maybe we don't have any more discussion about that specifically, was the gymnasium. As I mentioned to you all, we did not set fees. I'm kind of glad we didn't set fees yet. We can make some fee recommendations and bring that back to the April meeting as well if you want. If you want us to set fees for youth leagues, adult leagues, that gym really isn't conducive to having a basketball tournament, renting it out for a basketball tournament. There just simply is not room. Where Brooke is experiencing that issue, even with pickleball play days, they're taking all their stuff and putting it in the EOC or putting it in the lockers in the bathroom. But if there's a bunch of them and they want access to their phone, they've got to have somewhere to put all that. So it would be hard for us to rent that gym for a basketball tournament because there's no spectator space. Absolutely, we can make some recommendations if we want to do youth league practice. We have kind of left it open to the public. We have pickleball 5 or 6 days a week. Even when we just have open gym time on Thursday mornings, the last couple Thursday mornings, somebody showed up to play pickleball. So it is getting used nonstop by members and guests. We have some that pay every single Thursday and they show up and play with a guest, with a member to play pickleball. So however council wants us to do that, eventually we'll come back to you with some additional rates to actually rent that gym space. As you know, we're trying to kind of manipulate the floor and learn how to take care of the floor so that we don't tear the floor up with tables and chairs, and so.
I think one of my concerns is that because pickleball is so popular, and I love that it's so popular, and I love that the gym is being used for pickleball, but I don't want people to feel like, oh, well, I mean, it's pointless for me to go up there and try to play because the pickleballers have it all the time.
So
How do we,
Brooke has designated times, right? So she has designated pickleball times. They tend to be in the morning. I think there's 1 or 2 nights a week. Brooke, would you like to come up and tell that story? I can do it. I'm going to butcher it. Brooke's going to do a much better job of telling you the story.
So we have 2 nights a week that we have pickleball designated time, and then 2 mornings that we have, and then I think Saturday there's time designated. When it's not designated for pickleball, they can come in and play pickleball, but if somebody wants to come in and use the gym, they get to. So if they want to come in and play basketball, everybody gets to come in and they get to play basketball. So
It's considered open gym, and so they can use it for pickleball until somebody shows up and wants to play basketball, and then we move the pickleball and they go, or they play basketball with the people that are there. And we still have people coming up on those days. Thursday is one, as you all know, I've been there a couple Thursdays now, and Thursday is one where all day Thursday is open gym time. And that means you could play basketball, you could play volleyball, you could jump rope, you could do cartwheels. I mean, you can do anything you want. If it's not being used, pickleball can use it, but Brooke makes sure that they are aware that if somebody shows up to use that gym for something else, because pickleball takes the whole gym, they will have to stop. And all of them are very receptive to that.
yeah, they came in the first time and they asked a bunch of questions and we set it down and they understood, and they've been.
When I was there the first Thursday, they showed up and they're like, we know. If somebody shows up to play basketball, Angie, we have to leave. And I'm like, okay, okay. I don't know that I know all those rules, so thanks for sharing. So they're real respective of each other. And Brooke has had some calls, hey, why are the pickleball people there? I want to play. And she said, come on, if you show up, the gym, it is open gym time. We will remove the pickleball net and you'll be allowed to use it.
okay, that certainly helps, okay.
So are we good now, for now, not setting a gymnasium rental fee at this time?
That is.
Good with that, Bobby?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. All right, any other discussion on the community center policy and procedures? Nope, all right, moving on. 4C, discussion regarding the Gun City fiscal year 2026 mid-year budget amendment, the sponsor, city manager, Dr. Smith.
Okay, so I have a presentation. You all received a handout in your packet that outlined a lot of this, but as you know, last year as well, I went through kind of a presentation, not really on where we are, but how we got to where we are and all that information. So Janet has the clicker, so next slide, please, Janet. So these are the strategic priority guiding principles that council set forth that's in our strategic plan. And as you know, my team has been working on KPI measurements for every single department and setting goals. I've shared that with you all in your meetings, in your one-on-one meetings. And so we're kind of 2026 approved general fund budget. What we anticipated revenues to be and what we anticipated expenditures to be as they were approved in our budget. Next slide, please, Janet. And then these are the fiscal year 2026 special fund budget. So if you'll remember, this year was the first year you saw these budgets as a part of your budget document. And I hope next year we can even strengthen that more. That very first column was the year-end fund balance at the end of September, so you can see those amounts. We had some revenue estimates in the budget as well. Like the special funds, those are donations. It's hard to guess how much we're going to get in donations unless we know some are coming in. Seizure and forfeiture account, that's based on seizures and forfeitures. And the capital improvement fund, while it has money in it, it does not get revenue unless council designates revenue there, right? And then this was the back page of the budget for the most part outside of that first column, and then what each of those would be spent for. And that was directly, I got that right out of the budget. Next slide, please, Janet. And so this is the full revenue and expense breakout. So a lot in the past, council has focused a lot on the general fund budget. We talked about this at our budget meetings last year. We talked about this also kind of a little bit at our mid-year budget last year. We focused specifically on general fund budget. But you do have all those accounts you just saw that we take supplies and equipment and things out of as well. So when you look at a full budget, it's important to look at all of those funds, not just capital improvement and the revenue list, but also those other funds and what they're contributing to it and how we're spending money out of it, like I outlined on that first one. So you can see here for fiscal year 2026 revenues, the total budget revenue is $6.9 million. The expenditure is a little higher than that because we have a lot of money in those special accounts. Janet, can you go back a couple slides? You can see here, right? For instance, the court security fund has $46,000 in it. We expect to bring in $10,000 this year. We're spending $8,000. You get down to street maintenance sales tax. At the end of the year, it had $925,000. We budgeted $875 because we know we're doing more of Harbor Point plus some additional road projects. So that doesn't necessarily all the revenues balance all the expenses because there are excess revenues in those special funds that we're now going to spend some of those dollars. So if you'll go back. So you can see on this slide exactly where the revenues come from and then what they go to. Specifically divided into personnel, contractual, supplies, operational, utility, and capital. Capital expenses are things like roads, things like cars, those larger dollar expenditures. And you're going to start seeing these categories more and more as we move forward, as Mickey and I are kind of relaying out the budget so that council gets a full look at all of the accounts and not just the general fund accounts, right? Next slide, please. So this is the January 2026 bank balance report. As it was posted online, in unrestricted funding, we have a required 90-day reserve. That is $1,400,128. That is comprised of the 2 CDs at Prosperity, this 2 CDs at First State Bank, and then out of that, January, $1,430,023.37, $998, $611.66, right? So that is where we come up with that. In the general fund balance, which is that very top, we have $431,411.71 to spend without dipping into our 90-day reserve. Now, you all know I'm a very conservative budgeter. As you heard from me in 2024, we're no longer going to pull money out of general fund reserves to fund things. We're going to wait until we see where we're at the end of the year and spend that money mid-year on additional supplies or equipment. So rolled over from fiscal year 2025 to 2026 as excess reserves is $376,374.01. And then you have your capital improvement fund, the total that's in the fund, $935,212 of that is dedicated to the community center and police vehicles. So there was about $30,000 this year for police vehicles. The rest is, we're still working through all the community center invoices, and it's possible we've paid some of those. We just haven't transferred that money out from capital fund to that. And so the total available in the capital improvement fund over and above our 90-day is $719,237. That fund has traditionally been used and is typically used in most places to purchase equipment and one-time purchases. It's one-time money, right? There's not other, it's not going to replenish itself unless we put money into it. So I know where we don't have any money came from. It came from the budget in 2024 when we all had the conversation, and I said, let's stop taking money out of reserves. Let's spend what we think we're going to get and what we already have sitting in some of these special funds, and then mid-year, we will have this conversation. Gun Barrel City is in an extremely healthy financial position. We are not having money trouble. We're not in trouble. As a matter of fact, if you go back to those graphs, you'll see 55% of our expenses is personnel. So we are in a good position. There are other things that funnel into the funds that the city spends besides just tax dollars. We have reserve funds that have money, that some get money in them, that allow us to purchase one-time things. Next slide. This is the restricted funding. Again, this is something that is on the bank balance report. It's in your monthly report every single month, but that really hasn't been a part of our ongoing budget. And so these are limited in use, and the sinking fund is to offset the city hall payment. Right, Mickey? Yes. I keep saying fire truck. Mickey keeps correcting me. That is the equivalent of one city hall payment. And that was required when we took out the money to build or refinish or refurbish, redevelop this property as City Hall. Next. So this is tax reporting up to date. You can see where we are as of January. We're in very good condition. Pretty much every single month we have come ahead of where we were last year. And that this, again, is in the monthly report. Next slide, please, Janet. And then you know that in March, we are bringing back to you an investment with Hilltop Securities. This will happen actually before the mid-year budget, which will happen at the end of April. We will have another meeting about mid-year budget. This is just the first. Get all the information, and then we'll have a healthy discussion the first couple of weeks of April to make some decisions so that we can approve that. But this is staff's recommendation for those investment strategies with Hilltop into Techstar. And so Mickey and I kind of sat down and went through this. We have already closed out one CD with Prosperity. The other CD will be on your agenda for next week. It closes out April 15th, so before we have another meeting. Please understand that money is not just getting moved to some cash account. In some cases, it's drawing higher interest in our money market account that it's getting moved to than the CD that it's living in. So it is a temporary move, and it is still drawing interest. It's just drawing interest temporarily until we move it into a higher drawing account. So, and then you have your restricted funds there, and this is just a proposal on taking a portion of each of this, what would go to Techstar, what would stay in our operating accounts. We would end up moving about $3.6 million into Techstar. And next week, you will actually see what their current rates are. I think today, I don't have it right here in front of me. I looked it up this afternoon. I think their current rate is like 3.676% was today's rate. I can pull it up and see every day's rate. So this is just, we will discuss this more at our next meeting and before we make any of those movements, but this is just kind of staff recommendation to keep funding in our operating budget, in our operating accounts, but also have money in those investment firms that can be making us money, right? That's the number one thing, is ensuring that we are having our money help us make money so that we do have more reserves there ready to go. So this in your list was broken out. This is just the spreadsheet version of it, the Excel sheet version of it. These are the requests. Some of these you've seen before. You saw them in the FY 2026 requests. Some are new. Some have prices now that didn't before. But staff and I have sat down and really worked through. We have, let me verify this number before I say it out loud. We have $376,374.01 that was revenue above and beyond what we projected last year that rolled over into FY 2026. So just like last year, those funds are there that we can invest back in one-time equipment one-time purchases, and we kind of broke these out. One thing we've talked long about is improved sound for this chamber, the ability to have a meeting at the tables and it be projected through sound, replacing Janet's microphone. It's approximately $25,000. It is the exact same company that updated our video, and when they updated the video, they set it up to be ready to update the sound as well, to kind of get rid of the echo and such. So it's really phase 2. Conex containers, this was on the original list. We had a lot of conversation about that. I promised you I would go back and see what's in these containers, what do we need to do. Conex containers are great if they are for a period of time, right? There comes a time when they're not, and these two that we have served their purpose. One holds police equipment that is confiscated or seized, forfeited. One has documents in it. Our staff is going through the documents. Brittany and Lauren have been getting all the old plans out and getting them scanned so that they're all digital. But we can use them for more permanent storage. We have some storage that we have to keep forever, and we can scan it a little bit at a time, but it would take us forever to bring it all down, and that all Mickey do for 9 hours a day is scan, 40 hours a week is scan documents. So that's not necessarily practical. So we keep as much as we can scan, and we're doing as much as we can digitally now, but there is still some documents that we have to store until we can destroy them. And so we would get the Conex containers, install some shelving, get the documents up off the floor, and then our fire department has volunteered to use our old Conex containers for some training. So they can take our old ones and use them for some training. One thing that we started recently looking at is a time clock, a time management software. We do paper timesheets. We do paper time off requests. And PD does their schedules on a whiteboard. And so one thing they asked for at last year's budget was some software to help do scheduling. Not everybody can do 84-hour work weeks, time periods for PD, and then the fire, because they're on a 212-hour, they get paid, but it's a 212-hour schedule. This one can. There is a local city implementing them now. I had a great meeting with them. This will, if we don't do this, it'll come back at the next budget to have a conversation about. This one does have an ongoing cost. It's about $3,100 a year, which is very reasonable. It's a price per employee, but it would do time clock management, it would do time off requests, and it would do scheduling for at least PD and fire. Most of the rest of the folks work a pretty normal schedule, but it would allow our police department and our fire department to actually build a schedule where people could trade shifts, and then that translates directly into their timesheet, which then Mickey gets once every 2 weeks to be able to then, it would upload immediately into QuickBooks, so it would really automate that process as a whole. So we started taking a look at, that was not on your list before, but I have all the information. I will send it to council. It's something I just got. I had a meeting with them. They just sent it to me. So that is in addition to what was in your packet. Funding for property cleanup. I've had a lot of conversations with the building team, code enforcement team. We have about 15 cleanups that we could do, right? We're very close. We've been doing a partnership of hiring some outside assistants and doing some in-house. Code enforcement and our streets team partnering together to do some of these cleanups. You will see, I believe in April, you will see 2 that we need to demolish and put liens against the property. Those have to come to council. But this would be kind of, I couldn't clean up all of them today before the end of the year if I wanted to, right? I couldn't process 15 of them. So I worked with our building official and our code enforcement officer, and they believe if they could get about $30,000, they could put a pretty big dent in what we have right now, and then ask for some more additional funding in the next year's budget. I can also send you all the spreadsheet if it's easier to read. Admin vehicle, the fire chief marshal's truck. If you will remember, we got a grant for a skid unit. A skid unit is the thing that slides into the back of the truck that turns it into a brush truck. I was saying forest fire, a brush truck. So we got a grant from, to have a new skid unit, and that is going into the back of the fire chief, fire marshal truck. We are in need of a replacement truck. That truck was purchased with grant funds. The skid unit was purchased with grant funds, but we are in need of another admin fire truck. And so that is something that we would like to add in there. This would be basically a 150, which will help with gas mileage, but with them doing all of the inspections and them doing all of the new businesses going out and doing these walkthrough plans, that's going to be an important addition. When they finish the skid unit, our fire chief will lose his truck. We still have the assistant fire chief truck. We still have some of those little expeditions, those older expeditions, but this would replace that truck that is becoming a brush truck.
That's 50,000, correct?
Yes. And then the fire department also has, and this was in the budget, some exterior walls that need some work done on them just from water running down between the roof. It's stucco metal, and so it just needs some replacement done and then to repaint the outside. PD needs some breaching tools and some ballistic shields. This is actually a mandated purchase by House Bill 33. So we are going to have to buy these. This was a great time to have that conversation because of the Uvalde Act, which was passed by the legislature. So these are two things. There's also some training. We have to designate a PIO. We've done a lot of those things, and we can do the training. We can cover the training. But we do need to purchase 6 breaching tools and 6 ballistic shields. Building remodel, this is the PD building remodel. I have put it all into one that you all have seen before. Admin office carpet, paint the walls, chair, handrail, texture, paint the doors, refloor the attic. As you all know, there were a significant number of boxes up in the attic. Those have been taken out, but there are some issues still there. And then also do some work in the lobby to make it a little more friendly to our folks that come in there. Also raincoats for officers. Our officers do not have raincoats. So they are either in their personal raincoats on a rainy day. It's relatively inexpensive, $1,600 for 16 raincoats. And it could even be a little less expensive than that, but that's kind of what we're expecting. There are exhaust fans in the evidence room that have stopped working. We think maybe the building got struck by lightning because they've had a few issues. This was one of them, and we need to replace those exhaust fans. We're waiting on the final quote, but we're going to talk about that here in just a second. They're also running low on crime scene packing and labeling. Our detectives have been extremely busy, and that has taken a little bigger hit out of their office supply line than they expected. They can buy it, but it will drain their office supply line, so this is a good time to have that conversation. 2 computers. All computers are required to be upgraded to Windows 11. We still have some that are not Windows 11. I had 4. I was able to finagle around and reallocate 2. I still need 2. Our detective and our lieutenant need a better processing software, a better processing computer that processes things faster because of the software that they have to run. And so we would replace 2 police computers, take those computers out, wipe them, upgrade them. One would go to streets and one would go to parks. They're still good running computers. They're just a little bogged down for the software that the detective and the lieutenant are required to use in their role, so they need a faster processor. And then a skid steer. So one of the things that we're having to do currently is anytime we do trail work or we partner, our streets partners with code enforcement to go out and do a tear down, we're having to rent a skid steer. And so, as you know, in the last budget year, we talked a lot about a dump truck. We've had a lot of conversations about, is that the best thing to replace, or is there a piece of equipment? And both code enforcement and streets would like to have a skid steer so that, one, skid steer is great to use on ball fields, on parks, on trails, on all those things, but then also a secondary use to help with some of these home cleanups because it has a claw. The pricing that you see is a first draft pricing. Very quick, let's get a good price, let's get a quick price to see where council might have a taste. Then before your next meeting, invest time in getting some good quotes on. This is a good ballpark, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit less. This is a very good, this is an actual price. It's probably not the best price because we didn't go out and get 3 quotes on every single thing, which is absolutely something we would do. So that's kind of the list. You'll see this list again. Anything we don't fund rolls over to next year's, right? What we've really worked on is let's don't recreate a list every single time. Let's start with what we need. What is mission critical? And let's add to it as we need to add to it. So there are some things on this that weren't on the last one. And then, is there another slide, Janet? Question for council. I'll have Janet go back to that. What questions does council have for staff related to mid-year expenses? I have some of my team here that can help with that if we need it. What one-time projects would council like more details on, or staff to do some additional research on the funding aspect? What the pricing? What questions does council have about investment recommendations with Hilltop? And are there anything else council would like us to go look at? So maybe you know of something that, hey, we want to try this. Can we get some prices on that? But, and then next steps are at the March meeting, which is next Tuesday night. Council will approve the agreement and the what's the word, Janet, of the people on the application? Yes. The people, you will approve a resolution to enter into that agreement, and it also has the people that move money around within those accounts. It can't write a check out of Techstar, right? Council's gonna see everything we do. There's no, Yeah, authorized representatives, that's the word I was looking for. I had designataries in my head, that's not a word. So you'll see that, and it allows us, because with Hilltop, we can move money back and forth into an operating account if needed, out of an operating account into the investment account. Early April, we will have a follow-up meeting with all of council to really say, yes, I'm interested in this, or no, I'm not. These are the things that we would like to push forward. And then April 28th, we will have at the council meeting, we will approve a budget amendment. And the budget amendment does take a majority plus 1 vote. So, Janet, will you go back first to Hilltop? Any concerns or comments on this? This obviously is just a staff recommendation. These balances move every month, so when Mickey closes February within the next week or so, there will be some movement on this because money, comes in and goes out as we pay bills and get tax checks and fines and fees and such. So any comments, questions, concerns?
I have a question. So on the capital improvement fund says there's $935,212 that's dedicated to the PD and I think and the community center. Is that correct?
And the community center is the part that I cut off,
Right.
trying to make it fit.
No, that's fine. But if you were to take that money out of the 1.6, how do you move 1.5?
So, right, go ahead, Mick.
So those funds would just be moved into general fund? That's where those funds have been taken out of right now. We just have not replenished that. They would just be moved to general fund as the general fund overage.
So as you all know, at the end of the year, remember, we don't always move money until we have to. So we approve a budget, we pay for expenses as we go, and year end, we take whatever we need. If, let's say this year we allocated $23,000 to come out of capital improvement. If at the end of the year next year we don't need to move that $23,000, we're going to leave it there. And so we would move it temporarily as bills come out, as Mickey starts settling up the community center, we can bring it back out of the Hilltop investment, back into the general fund and settle that to make the general fund whole.
If need be. Right?
If need be. And we obviously with the community center are gonna have to move that money. It's not like there's an extra $900,000 sitting there, so. But yeah, so that's one that is, that would be today we move that, let that make us some money until Mickey starts settling those up closer to the end of year. And then.
Is there a cost or a limited number that we could move money in and out of those accounts?
My understanding is no, it is unlimited. We can move money in and out as often as we want. It's very fluid.
Okay, because I noticed that some of these operating balances are kind of low, depending on what you do with them, and then I just need to make sure that, because I know like sometimes in regular banking, first three are free, and then you get charged fees, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to make
Yeah,
sure
no,
that we
this
can
is
do it as
very
many times
liquid.
as we want, and there will be no fees.
This is very fluid.
Okay.
We'll confirm that, but I believe that is what she said in the meeting and what
That
she
was
said.
one of the questions I had asked when
Yeah.
she was up here last.
I was
I knew we
almost
did too,
positive.
but I want to still ask again, because seeing what the balances are being left in the operating, some of them are great. I have no idea, but like 8,000 in the court security fund. Well, I don't know what's in her budget for the year. You know what I'm saying? So 8,000 is not a whole bunch. So if she was to exceed that amount of money and need it, I just want to make sure that we can move, just like the hotel motel, you know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
for the, I think we do a lot of that for July Fest. Just want to make sure
Yeah.
that, if we needed those funds, they could be moved back.
Yeah.
Because I'm not comparing this today. I haven't been able to look
Right,
at that and
right.
compare to what we have budgeted for those
Right.
COPS accounts.
Right.
That's one of the benefits because, a CD is, we don't have access to that money.
We're
Right, but
locked
we're
in.
doing a lot more money than what we have in our current CDs, though. So I just wanted to make sure, and I do want to invest our money and to make money. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? To see a return on investment or return on that. So I just want to make sure.
And these special reserve funds will be very much like the capital improvement fund, right? One of the reasons that we have the money, that we do have is we didn't necessarily need to transfer over all of the capital improvement. And so if we get to the end of the year and we're settling up, this is a great way for these investments to make money for us for multiple years until we settle up at the end of the year, right? So,
So Techstar will actually be managing all of the restricted funds as well. That's not something
so it's not that they would necessarily be managing them. We still manage what gets spent out of that account.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
they have limited amounts, if we went back to that other one, they have limited things that we can spend them on, but they would be spent out of the general fund. We would just invest those dollars into a higher yielding account.
so that those dollars can be earning as well.
Right, right. So that they're working for us 10 months out of the year. And that number might be fluid. It's not always going to be $3.5 million, right? Closer to the end of the year, we may put some money in, take some money out, move that around a little bit to always make sure we're getting the most interest that we can. And Mickey and I have to sit down and go through this line by line, and we'll do that, and we'll bring that back to you at that April meeting where we've actually looked at February numbers, and we can say, hey, we have this budgeted or we have that budgeted, and so.
And most of these special funds have monies go into them each month, so they're going to continue to grow, and we're not going to be short.
Yeah. And again, a lot of that movement you see happens right at the end of the year when everything is done and we have to settle up those funds, so.
Any other discussion on the mid-year budget?
Janet, one more slide, can you go back to that? Is there anything on this list that you would like additional information on, me to do additional research on before our next meeting in early April? You don't have to tell me now, you guys can email it to me. This list will stay the same. I will not make any changes to this list after today. We won't add anything. We won't take anything off unless I end up with a grant for something. This list will remain the same. But if there is something specific that you are interested in seeing us fund mid-year, if you can let me know tonight or via email, then I can get some additional pricing so that I know going into that April meeting, I have a contract ready to go. So, and hard pricing.
Okay.
That time clock software, will they have the ability to log in from their cell phone?
So there's it's very cool. A neighboring city just implemented this, which is kind of how I found out about it in talking to other city managers. So an employee came over to show me theirs. It can be done on a computer, it can be done on an iPad, it can be done on a cell phone, but there is a geofence. So I had the city secretary come over and show me hers, and she was going to show me how she would clock in, and it wouldn't let her because she wasn't in the building.
Gotcha.
According, Time Clock Plus is a Texas company. They're based out of San Angelo. They can narrow it down to an office in a building. Like you have to be in that office in order to use your phone to clock in or clock out. It still has approvals by the supervisor and then it would have approvals by the treasurer, and it would mesh with, Mickey, I believe, had a meeting with them, and it would mesh directly with QuickBooks, which is what we use. So less error, right? So it's approved, and then while it is seen by a variety of people, there is less room for error on a keystroke error on uploading something somewhere. So we spend some time doing timesheets that, you know, would be much more effectively used time if we could clock in and out, and that would all be tracked digitally, so.
More trackable data.
Yeah, and it gets, I mean, the reality is, it gets our teams back out on the street faster, doing their job faster, because we're not tracking timesheets, paper timesheets, and so.
And then the admin vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me, am I remembering correctly that we did an admin vehicle for the police?
The police we did, yes, we did a used one for the police.
Okay.
This would be a pickup truck from Elder Dodge. Fire chief's already been in, yes, the fire chief has already been in conversations with them on just getting the basics, and then what do we need minor, you know, we gotta have lights and siren. There's some things we have to outfit it with, but being able to purchase something, and we could reduce that, but they're down to really just, when this turns into a brush truck, you wouldn't drive a brush truck every day, right? Gas mileage is terrible on the one we already have, so turning it into a brush truck gives us a backup brush truck that can be parked at Station 2, a brush truck, and then this admin vehicle, which would get much better gas mileage than the 250 we currently have anyway, so.
And does the 50,000 include the outfitting of the lights and such, or is that going to be an additional cost?
Thank you, sir.
We currently already have the radio for the truck. The 50,000 will get the truck and put the basic emergency lights we need and siren on it.
So the 50,000 should cover everything that,
Yes.
it will complete the truck with what you already have.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Colby.
Yeah.
All hands on deck tonight to help.
Any other questions?
Appreciate it. No.
No? Nope. Yep.
Okay.
At this time, this meeting is adjourned.